This is the Infinite Energy Show, where together we explore the infinite dimensions of energy. We're sisters Kay and Shi, seasoned restaurateurs, university educators, and the visionary co-founders of the Neuroencoding Institute. We're not just sisters by blood, but your allies in personal growth and transformation. Here's what we know about you. You want more energy. How do we know? Because everybody does, including the most successful people in the world. So let's get to it, because in the world of infinite energy, anything is possible. Hey there, family, and welcome back to another episode of the Infinite Energy Show. We're so glad that you are here with us for this month's energy, the energy of education. Now, this month in May, it is the education season, right? We've got graduations going. We are going to attend your kids' 8th grade graduation, my daughter's kindergarten graduation. Dare we say pomp and circumstance? Na, 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 na. That's enough. And cut. By like minute 19 at any graduation, everyone's like, okay. Nope, you got 2 more hours of that song. But it's a beautiful demonstration and celebration at the end of educational achievements. And so we thought it was the perfect time to bring forward this energy. Now, we love education from all of its different facets. We are educators in our work as instructors at the University of Nevada, Reno, in what we do with the Neuroencoding Institute, as well as being forever students. And that's just something that we'll talk about here in today's episode, along with where education came from, all of the different ways that we can learn it, see it, how it's evolved over time, and so much more. So you know how we do it here on the Infinite Energy Show. We like to take a subject, put it in the middle, and then we walk all the way around that subject. We discover the different facets. We say, what are we going to think about this particular subject? And then we finish the show. And that helps all of us understand a holistic 360 approach about whatever topic we're putting in the middle. So stay tuned for today's episode on the energy of education. All right, you know how we like to roll here on the show. Let's start out with a little definitions and history. So first, education can broadly be defined as the process of facilitating learning and the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. So basically any kind of learning that you're doing on purpose. Now, learning is a function of being a human being. It's not necessarily synonymous with education. It is baked into us as biological beings. So we can think of education as the structure around learning, the formalized process, the standardized process of learning. And we're big fans of the process of learning, and even bigger fans of putting some structure around it and calling it education. Now, the structure of education did begin in the early 19th century, led by a gentleman by the name of Horace Mann, who brought forward the idea that all children, at the time, just boys, should have access to elementary school education. So he's known as father of the common school and helped progress the idea of education as foundational for the unity in our nation and the ability to socialize and stabilize our society as a whole. Now, it got expanded a little bit further as the Industrial Revolution began to really take hold here in the States. We saw the need for a more qualified workforce as they were doing some more qualified things like running machinery versus working on farms. And so with that, the addition of the high school education came into play and even expanded to women and people of color. So our traditional understanding of education is this idea of K through 12. It's publicly funded. It's something everyone participates in. It's actually a fairly new idea for our society, as you just heard about. And it's exciting that we see the value of education being promoted and carried on in our species today. So today we're going to unpack all the different angles of education, from traditional to non-traditional to self-education, talk a little bit more about building skills, habits, and what learning can look like when you're the one in the driver's seat. Now, when we think about education, we generally think about that traditional educational route, first K through 12, and then typically, at least here in the US, college years after that. And that's what we usually think about when we think education. Now, Shi, you and I had a very different approach when it came to education. Now, both of us made it through K through 12. Shi with flying colors. Me, you know, the door was closing. I got underneath it. We were good. I made it through high school. But Shyla went on to get both her bachelor's and her master's. I love the formal process in education. The education system isn't made for everyone, but I happen to be one of those people that thrives in that environment. A little bit of competition, you get a good grade, you understand the subject well. I just want someone who's built for the traditional education system. And so I've always loved engaging in it, and I'm proud to now teach my master's degree sociology subject at the University of Nevada, Reno. Now, there are many paths that you can take when it comes to education. We'll talk a little bit about my non-traditional journey as we go along, but universities are a great place for people to get extended education, to get specialized knowledge, but there's also formal education inside training programs, inside career colleges that can give people qualifications to get out there and do their work.
There are certain careers that we want to make sure someone has a traditional education for, that we want to make sure that they haven't been learning it or through theory or on a whim or on our own self-pace. We want our doctors, our mechanics, our lawyers to be formally trained. And so that's where traditional education thrives. We've seen some areas in our society now where traditional education isn't necessarily matching up with the needs and the progress, especially as technology advances. And that's why we've seen the rise of non-traditional education, like we'll talk about next.
I think there are a lot of folks who are traditionally educated, who went to university. We talk about, we've heard a lot about the millennial dream that kind of got bought and sold to millennials in particular, the generation that came forward and said, if you go to college and come out, you will get a good job and you will be able to succeed. But the 2008 market crash really did create an environment where that wasn't necessarily the American dream anymore. And so traditional education became really expensive. Student loan debt rose to its highest levels that it's ever been. And we have a frustrated workforce now who said, hey, I did what I was supposed to do, and I didn't really get the results I thought I was going to.
And when we think about the way technology has advanced, if you learn something in a 4-year degree, can we really expect someone to go get a 40, 50-year career somewhere just using what they've learned there? So we see education in the traditional sense continuing into professional development and in other ways.
There are advantages and disadvantages, but next, let's talk about some non-traditional education elements. Now, if you're anything like me, maybe you have a difficult time sitting still, taking instruction, having people tell you what to do. That's why I personally took the non-traditional education route.
There's a lot of people like you, and there's a lot of people that are gifted and talented and creative, but that don't necessarily fit into the mold of how our traditional education systems work. And that's why we've seen this rise of non-traditional education, especially if we look at the full spectrum. We see we've got Montessori schools, we've got private schools, we've got alternative ways of addressing that K through 12 education. But then also when we look at what happens after adulthood, there's some really interesting education things that have come up that Kay and I are even involved in.
Yeah, so after the college age, when I was intended to go on to university, I felt like, oh, I can't even stand this. I barely made it through high school. It was so difficult for me, but I know that I'm talented and I know that I have something on my heart that I can give to the world. And so once I found a specialty that I wanted to focus in on, which at the time was marketing, what I did was I went out and found a bunch of certificate programs that I could add into my arsenal to help me gain the skills that I needed in order to get started.
Don't be fooled by what Kay just told you, because she was still testing off the charts for intelligence. And being from all of her teachers, they would say, boy, when she applies herself, she's amazing. When she raises her hand, she's incredible. When she speaks, we all listen. But the structure of the education wasn't set up for someone like her to succeed. I did not test into GT. This one did.
Well, thank you so much, sis, for those kind words and the love. It's true. The traditional education system simply isn't set up for everyone. And some of the greatest minds of our generations have come out of non-traditional education. Like, did you know that both Steve Jobs and Beyonce are both Montessori educated?
We've been hearing from a lot of folks in our circles as well about the rise of homeschooling and the different options that are there and the different ways that you can adapt for your children's learning style and your delivery style and lifestyle. So it's beautiful to see that there is this flexibility and this increase. And as we look again at that non-traditional education past adulthood, what we do with the Neuroencoding Institute is also a certification program, allowing people to become certified in a neuroscience way to help other people program their brains to default to whatever responses that they would like. And so this options and these expertise availability helps people get more skilled and more specialized in a way that helps our society develop.
So we've talked traditional education, we've talked non-traditional education. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the roles of teachers and students. Raise your hand if you've ever had a teacher who has positively impacted your life.
I would raise 2 hands for that.
Maybe
because I've had lots, I've had lots of teachers impact my life. I remember through many of my years, and some in not good ways, but the vast majority of my teachers had a positive impact on me. And I truly thank teachers for what they do.
You know, Shai, who was your favorite teacher?
So many. I've had incredible mentors through college. Of course, Dr. Clayton Peoples is one of my favorite teachers of all time.
I also love you, Dr. Clayton Peoples.
You are amazing. You're an excellent teacher, friend, and mentor, and I love you. My third grade teacher, Mrs. Rossi, she was amazing and loved her, and many more in between.
Oh, I had a teacher in high school who took mercy on my non-structured brain, who allowed me in a chemistry class to submit a written paper on the importance of chemistry for my final instead of having to do formulas and take it all together. And this teacher took mercy on me because it was the last class that I needed to graduate from high school. And if I did not pass that class, I would not graduate high school and would have had to do another year. Now, I was on track to graduate a year early, so it would have been okay to do another year, but I did get to graduate a year early because of a teacher that took mercy on my non-structured brain. And so educators from a formal sense play a really large role in our lives. They played huge roles for us, but your original educator is your family.
That's right. We know that 90% of what you learned how to be, at least your original default programming, comes from your family. You cannot overstate the impact that the family has on your socialization. What that means is your political affiliation is likely the same as your parents, that you likely live within 20 miles of your parents or your hometown. It means that you likely dress like your parents do, that you're interested in the sports teams that they were interested in, that you like the hobbies that they are interested in, the authors, the music, and so forth, because there's so much impact that even though we don't think necessarily about our families being a traditional teacher, they are one of our biggest influences in our lives.
Another major influence in education, especially when it comes to influencing our values, are religious leaders and religious teachers. Shout out to Jesus, shout out to Buddha, shout out to the Dalai Lama, the Pope. These are individuals who take up values-based teaching and help to disseminate them throughout the world.
Many of us have teachers in the form of mentors or people that we listen to and be influenced by, that both influencers on social media and not. But these are the folks in our lives that we tend to take our bigger questions to, or our purchase queries to, and to trust their advice on what they give back. When we expand our idea and thinking around teacher outside of the classroom, we can see that there's teachers all around us.
We are also in and of ourselves teachers because we teach other people how to treat us by effectively setting boundaries for our own emotional and physical needs. So we're teaching others all the time. We are being taught all the time because after all, life is the greatest teacher of them all.
That's right. And we all benefit from those things. And then we, as in Kay and Shi specifically, are also teachers. As Kay mentioned, we are educators at the university as well as through the Neuroencoding Institute, helping lead the faculty and teach the student body there as well. So it's something that we're passionate about. It's a role that we love to celebrate. It's something that we think many more should elevate, and that in our society it could probably be valued more. Maybe teachers could get paid a little bit more. But all in all, teachers are incredibly effective and influential, and they're a key piece of the education pie.
Next up, let's talk about students.
Now, we celebrated teachers, but no teacher exists without students. And most of us, although I think I dare to say all of us, have played this role before in our lives.
Now, you may have been a student when you were younger, sitting at a desk taking notes. But if you are somebody who learns through the process of life, you may be a forever student just like us.
We love to celebrate forever students and forever learners, people who are always questing for more learning and for more education. Again, structured learning, standardized learning. And when we think about students or people who have that student energy throughout their lives, they're creating more, they're being more fulfilled, they're impacting more people, they're influencing more. So education is a key piece of that ingredient.
In fact, some of the most influential people that Shyla and I have had the opportunity of coming alongside, like John Maxwell and Joseph McClendon, oftentimes we see them engaging in behavior as being forever students. They get on a stage and they speak to a crowd of thousands of people, and then they get off the stage and sit in the audience and take notes.
We love to see teachers that we celebrate and elevate in that student role as well. And we love to be in that role as well, where you take notes, where you're learning something. That role of student, the more you can flex that muscle, the better it is for you.
But we do have 9 tips for you today on becoming a better student. If you want to be a better student at life, a better student in traditional or formal education, these tips are for you.
First tip for being a good student, stay organized. I don't know if we could stress this one enough and stress it to ourselves as much as we stress it to anyone else building their student muscle out there, but staying organized allows you to learn in a way that's effective, memorable, and keeps you on track.
Now, staying organized was really difficult for me in traditional education, and it wasn't until I found out the power of taking notes consistently that my educational organization began to transform.
Now, the next two tips for you are participate actively and ask questions. And we love these two and they go together because one of the best ways you can participate actively is by asking questions. Be a hand raiser, be a contributor, be an active curiositor. I don't know if that's a word, it's definitely not, but I like the idea of being someone who is actively engaged in curiosity, and that's a good way for you to have that student mentality.
The other thing that you can do to be a more effective student is to develop effective study habits. This doesn't mean forcing yourself into studying in a way that isn't effective for you. It means finding the way that it works to study for you. Did you know that most textbooks also come in audiobook format? If you are more of an audible listener, then use your car time where you're driving as an opportunity for you to study if reading is difficult. We're not just talking about studying for school, but studying for life, for character development, for skill development, habits, and more.
You want to practice good time management, of course, when you are flexing your student spirit by being able to effectively look at what a project is, what a course of study is, and how that can fit into your life, and chunking it out so that you're not waiting till the end to finish assignments or you end up falling off.
Let's also not forget about setting clear goals. What is it that you want from education? What do you want? Answer this question. It will help you to stay motivated as time goes on. If you don't know what you're working for, why are you working in the first place?
How about embracing technology? This can help you so much, especially for those parts of your student mentality that feel like they're lacking or maybe a little bit difficult for you. You can use technology to fill in those gaps, to be your assistant. Things like ChatGPT, things like online tutors and resources are available. Imagining that we have all of the education and learning at our fingertips already really opens up the doors to allow you to use technology to be a better student.
Next up, you got to develop a little bit of resilience. Learning can be difficult, especially since life is designed to help you grow through the teacher of pain, which means that you will often come across things that stretch you, that make you feel uncomfortable, maybe an idea that challenges your previous perspective, which means you've got to be able to be resilient enough to handle the challenge of learning. So developing resilience can help you in becoming a forever student.
Now, if you are a forever student and you're questing for knowledge all the time, you want to make sure you're also being a critical thinker. Don't just accept or believe everything that you come across. Allow yourself to cross-reference, think critically, and always make your decisions for yourself.
Next up, we're going to get into one of our very favorite types of education, which is the education and the building of your character. So stay tuned for more.
All right, character education, one of our favorites. Actually, it is our favorite. We love to teach this one the most. We've got a lot of content around it. We're not going to spew it all at you now, but we do want to share a little bit because this is one of the most impactful kinds of education you can invest in.
When we talk about character development, we're talking about personal development, developing who you are on the inside. The definition of character are the mental and moral qualities that are distinctive to an individual. Now, you might think that the mental and moral qualities distinctive to you as an individual are set in stone, but that would be what Dr. Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. It turns out that we can be a little bit more flexible and have a growth mindset when it comes to our character, understanding that our mental and moral qualities can change if we are willing to grow and learn.
As alluded to earlier, whatever character you have now is likely programmed from your past experiences. And now you've accepted it as who you are, but we do have, as Kay was mentioning, the ability to change our character. And that's one of the things that distinguishes us from our animal brethren and allows us to be whatever we want, right? Wolves have to be a wolf. Humans can be anything, and this is because we have the willpower and the free will to develop our characters in a way that is intentional for what we want.
Now, I wish we had the dirty laundry from our last episode to bring out here, but want to just share a story with y'all when Shyla and I, probably about 8 years ago now, found a time where we decided that, hey, we needed to work on our character because our mental and moral qualities were not being demonstrated in a way that was consistent with what we said that we valued. valued. And we found ourselves on an airplane, and as the airplane stopped and came up to the gate, somebody 3 or 4 rows back from us came up and charged forward in the center aisle. Now, at the time, Shyla and I were very indignant about this because, hey, it was our turn to get off the plane.
We were entitled to our spot in line, and we made that known. It started with whispers between us, but we became emboldened as those around us were looking and nodding and agreeing with us. Many of us were socially agreeing that it was egregious what these two had come up and rushed and done. And we started complaining so loudly that the folks heard us and started to take a few steps back. Now, by then, other folks had stood up so they couldn't retreat all the way back. But they stepped back enough to let us get off first. And we, so justice filled with righteousness, exited that plane and waited for our luggage at the same luggage carousel as them for the next hour and 15 minutes.
Now, in the Uber ride later, we started to examine this particular instance and thought to ourselves, man, speaking audibly about someone else in a negative way is not in alignment with the values that we have around kindness and valuing other people and seeing everyone for the human individuals that they are. And so Shyla and I said, you know what? We think that we need a little bit of character development. And so, yay, we went on a quest. We went on a quest to develop our characters and to become more of the women that we saw ourselves as in our future mind's eye.
We knew we could do better, and so we quested to do better. And that meant asking the question, who or what goes in the driver's seat then that steers us in the way of better character? And we started where many folks tell you to start, which is with passion, right? Live with passion and you'll never work a day in your life. And that is absolutely what we went after first.
Now, passion, a definition that we've got to share with you today, is strong or barely controllable emotion. Now, we were like, okay, let's get passion into the driver's seat. Let's start being passionate about life. But at the time, we were really passionate about brand loyalty to a company called Disney. You might know them as the evil overlords. We were also very passionate about drinking champagne. We were also passionate about growth, passionate about marketing, passionate about our businesses. And so there were a lot of things that developed and that grew from that particular energy being in the driver's seat. But passion ended up putting us into some sticky situations.
Right. Who wants strong and barely controllable emotion in the driver's seat when things go right? You better hope you're in a good emotional state. Otherwise, it might not actually play out the way that you want. And so we knew passion wasn't the right thing to be in the driver's seat for our true character development. So then we went with something that felt much more solid. If passion is loosey-goosey, let's find something with solid ground, and we landed on purpose.
Now, the definition that we'll share with you today of purpose is the reason for which something is created or for which something exists. Now, we were like, all right, great, purpose. This is like Mother Teresa. This is like Martin Luther King Jr. We're going to walk in the footsteps of purpose-filled individuals, and we shall find our character developed.
So we go looking for our purpose and we come up with, we're in this family business. We've been doing this for 2 decades. It's the majority of our lives. Clearly, squeeze in is our purpose. And our purpose has also got to be around teaching because we love what we get to do together. We love being able to communicate and share ideas and share learnings. And so we know that our purpose is these 2 things. And so now we know that no matter how we get squeezed by life, how we're trying to develop our character, that we are going to have squeeze in and teaching be the foundation of who we are and how we respond.
Now, if our purpose is a restaurant business, what do you think happened in March of 2020 when overnight we had an 85% drop in our revenue? Not an 85% drop in our expenses or an 85% drop in the employees that we had who had families depending on us, but an 85% drop of our immediate income. Now, all of a sudden, our purpose was shaken, and this definition, the very reason for which we exist, felt really rigid. If that's the reason that we exist and it can be threatened so easily by an outside force, then maybe we aren't standing on solid ground.
And that was scary. What does that mean? Do we not have a reason for existing then? Is our lives meaningless? Of course we know the answer to that is no. So while passion is important and purpose is something that we should contemplate and seek to fulfill, what we really need to do is seek fulfillment, as we just said, where instead of using fulfillment as the means to the end, fulfillment is the end, because ultimately what fulfillment is is satisfaction or happiness as a result of developing one's character or abilities.
Oh, we just said like the word of the day, character. Bow, 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 bow. Now, the definition of fulfillment has some really clear instructions, and this is what we loved. We wanted satisfaction or happiness, right? Don't you? We want that for sure. As a result, okay, great, we're going to get a result of developing. Ooh, that's a verb. That means we can do something about it. One's abilities, our skills, the things that we can do, or character, developing our abilities and our character. Now, this was more of an active process. This wasn't living out a passion or fulfilling a purpose. This was satisfaction or happiness as a result of development over time, which turns out is a never-ending process.
So our education in character came from the school of life as we fumbled, bumbled, and stumbled our way through trying to figure out what would have the biggest difference. We ultimately found that when we were chasing fulfillment, satisfaction or happiness as a result of developing our character, that was the real juice. And since then, we've been able to really relax into and develop further what that means for us and how we can teach others to maybe skip the whole 8 years of learning along the way and chase straight after fulfillment.
Now remember that definition of character are the mental and moral qualities that are distinctive to you as an individual. So as you seek fulfillment by developing your character, be thinking about how you grow in those mental and moral qualities, the tips of how to be a better student, learning from life around you, and engaging in personal growth and development material just like this are great places to start.
We know that you are lovers of character development and education because you're here with us, and we are too. So thanks for having that shared passion with us. Now, when we talked about education, one of the main things that we mentioned was that it is a place where the transmission of knowledge happens. And so that's what we'll talk about next.
You've heard us talk about learning from teachers, being a student. All of this is to gain knowledge. You just got some knowledge about character development, but turns out knowledge is not all the power it's cracked up to be.
It's the start of power. It's the spark of power. It's the beginning of power. Power is not possible without knowledge, but knowledge itself is not enough to change or influence anything. It's applied knowledge that makes it useful and helpful to our lives.
Right. Knowledge on ice does nobody any good, which means if you know a bunch of stuff, but you don't take any action on it, then you have no ability to create something new in the world. And so if gaining knowledge is really exciting to you, then way to go. We love it too, but you got to take action in order to see movement in your life.
Now take your hand and put the back of it on your forehead, and now swipe it away and go, whew, whew, because you do not have to apply every piece of knowledge. The value in knowledge gathering is finding 1, 2, 3 little pieces that influence you, that impact you, that allow you to break through to the next level, or to have the skill and develop it, or get the certificate, or reach the achievement so that you can move into the next area of your training or what it is that you want to do. But know that especially in the self-help development, personal growth world, then character development arena, that you're going to learn so much. And if you try to apply it all at once, the chances are you might fail at that. So pick the 1, the 2, the 3 that really stand out for you, and give yourself grace on the rest that you're going to save for later.
You know, oftentimes we see people won't take up education at all because it feels daunting. They won't read a book because they feel like, I'll never finish it. I won't get through it. That's not going to be good for me. But not reading the book at all and getting those 1 to 2 things doesn't allow you the opportunity to apply. So give yourself a little bit of grace. It doesn't have to be retaining the knowledge of everything you bring forward. Just find those little pieces that help you to take the action you need to move forward.
So for those of you who are perhaps donning the graduation caps this month or next month, or have a family member or loved one that is, we wish you a happy education celebration. It is something to celebrate as we celebrate the energy of education here today.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take that tassel from one side and put it to the other because you just graduated this episode of the Infinite Energy Show. As always, this comes at you with the most love from your sisters,
Kay and Shi. Thanks, everybody.